At 2200 hours on September 4, 1804, Lieutenant Stephen Decatur stood on the deck of a floating bomb, the USS Intrepid. 64 feet of captured ketch, now packed with 15,000 pounds of gunpowder and 150 shells. Anchored in the waters outside Tripoli Harbor, she rocked gently in the Mediterranean swell. In 4 hours, she would sail into history, or oblivion. Decatur was 25 years old, already a hero of the same war he was about to die in. Or so the mission design suggested. 4 months earlier, he'd led 74 volunteers into this same harbor to burn the captured frigate USS Philadelphia. That operation succeeded. Every man came home. This one was different. This was a fire ship, a kamikaze vessel. The Navy called it an Infernal, and the name fit. 12 volunteers stood with him on the Intrepid's deck, 13 men total. They'd been selected from hundreds who stepped forward. Men who knew the mathematics of this mission. Sail a powder keg into a fortified harbor. Navigate past shore batteries mounting 115 guns. Reach the anchored Tripolitan fleet, set the fuses, escape in a small boat. Probably, the First Barbary War had dragged into its 3rd year. The Barbary states, Tripoli, Algiers, Tunis, Morocco, controlled the Mediterranean approaches. Their corsairs seized American merchant vessels, enslaved crews, demanded ransom. The young United States, barely 28 years old as a nation, paid tribute. $2 million since 1795, 20% of the federal budget. President Thomas Jefferson decided tribute without end was intolerable. In 1801, he sent a naval squadron to the Mediterranean under Commodore Edward Preble. The mission, negotiate from strength. If negotiation failed, fight. For 3 years, American warships blockaded Tripoli, exchanged fire with coastal fortifications, launched small raids. The war ground forward with no decisive result. Then came the opportunity. Intelligence from escaped captives revealed the layout of Tripoli Harbor. More than 200 vessels crowded the inner anchorage. Gunboats, galleys, merchant ships, supply vessels. The Pasha of Tripoli's entire maritime capacity concentrated in one location. One successful strike could end the war. Commodore Preble conceived the plan in August 1804. Pack a vessel with explosives, sail it into the harbor under cover of darkness, detonate it among the anchored fleet. The resulting chain reaction would destroy dozens of ships, cripple Tripoli's naval power, force surrender. He chose the Intrepid for the role. She'd been captured from Tripoli in December 1803. 64-foot ketch, single-masted. Shallow draft perfect for harbor navigation. The Americans had used her before. She'd carried Decatur's raid in February 1804, slipping into the harbor to burn the Philadelphia. She was expendable, familiar with these waters, right size for the payload. The explosives came from the squadron's magazines. 100 barrels of gunpowder, 150 pounds per barrel, stacked below deck in the hold, artillery shells packed around them, fragmentation to maximize destruction, fuses connected to a timing mechanism, set for 15 minutes after ignition. Enough time to sail clear in the escape boat. Or so the theory went. Decatur had led the February raid. Preble wanted him to lead this one too. But the Navy had regulations about sacrificing decorated officers on near-suicide missions. The assignment went to Lieutenant Richard Summers, age 26. Summers and Decatur were friends. They'd attended the same academy, served together for 6 years. When Summers volunteered for the fire ship, he did so knowing the odds. The crew selection happened on September 2nd. Preble announced the mission to the squadron. He needed volunteers. He got 300. From that group, Summers chose 11 men. Experienced sailors who understood explosives, navigation, harbor combat. Men with no families. Men who accepted that escape was possible, but unlikely. Lieutenant Henry Wadsworth volunteered. Age 22, navigation specialist. He'd been Summers' classmate. Midshipman Joseph Israel. Age 19, 6 months at sea. He wanted to prove himself. 10 enlisted men whose names would be recorded for history. John Dorsey, James Sims, John Williams, Henry Carberry, Thomas Talmadge, William Harrison, James Caldwell, Solomon Weston, Elijah Searle, Robert Clark. 13 total, On September 3rd, they prepared the Intrepid, loaded the powder barrels into the hold, positioned shells for maximum fragmentation pattern, rigged the fuses, 2 parallel systems, primary and backup, each connected to slow match cord, calibrated to burn 15 minutes. Tested the timing 3 times on deck using measured lengths. 15 minutes, the escape window. They lowered a 12-foot boat into the water, tethered it to the Intrepid's stern. The escape craft, oars for 6 rowers, capacity for 13 men if they abandoned gear. Navigate 400 yards to the squadron's covering vessels. 15 minutes. Survivable. The plan called for the Intrepid to enter Tripoli Harbor at 0200 on September 4th. New moon. No illumination. They'd sail past the harbor entrance batteries in darkness. The shore guns couldn't target what they couldn't see. Once inside, they'd navigate by compass and memory to the main anchorage. Summers had studied charts of the February raid. He knew the approach. At the anchorage, they'd position the Intrepid among the densest cluster of enemy vessels. Set both fuses. Light the slow match. Board the escape boat. Row southeast toward the covering squadron, positioned 200 yards offshore. The Nautilus, Vixen, and several gunboats would provide suppressing fire if pursuit developed. Detonation would occur 15 minutes after the fuses lit. By then, the Intrepid's crew would be 300 yards clear. The explosion would destroy everything within 200 yards. Chain reactions would spread through the packed anchorage, burning wreckage, detonating magazines, collapsing masts. Chaos. That was the plan. At 23:30 on September 4th, the wind shifted. Southwest. Light breeze. Perfect for the approach. Summers gave the order. The Intrepid's crew raised the single sail. They cast off from the anchoring point. The ketch moved slowly toward the harbor entrance, 2 miles distant. The covering squadron watched them disappear into the darkness. The Mediterranean that night was moonless. Cloud cover obscured stars. Visibility near zero. The Intrepid sailed blind, navigating by compass bearing and wave patterns. Summers stood at the tiller. Wadsworth handled navigation. The crew remained silent. Sound carried over water. Any noise could alert the shore batteries. At 00:15, they passed the harbor entrance. The massive stone fortifications rose on both sides. 115 guns total. 24-pounders, 32-pounders, some 42-pounders. Loaded with grape shot for close defense. The batteries remained silent. No alarm, no cannon fire. The Intrepid slipped through undetected. Inside the harbor, the water was calmer, protected from the Mediterranean swell. Summers adjusted course southeast toward the main anchorage. Intelligence had placed the largest concentration of vessels in the harbor's southeast quadrant. He aimed for that position. At 00:45, witnesses aboard the covering squadron saw light. Not the planned signal, not the controlled burn of a fuse. An explosion. Massive, instantaneous. The entire Intrepid detonated in a single catastrophic fireball. The explosion lit the harbor like daylight, 15,000 pounds of gunpowder releasing energy in 1 millisecond. 150 shells fragmenting outward at supersonic velocity. The blast wave rolled across the water, reaching the squadron 100 yards away seconds later. Men on deck were knocked down by the concussion. The fireball rose 300 feet. Burning debris arced through the sky. Pieces of the Intrepid, hull planks, mast sections, rigging rained down across the harbor. Fragments fell on Tripolitan vessels. Some caught fire, most extinguished quickly. The heat dissipated, the light faded. When dawn came 6 hours later, American lookouts scanned the harbor for damage. They saw intact vessels, no chain reactions, no mass destruction. The anchorage appeared largely undamaged. A few ships showed burn marks, none had sunk. The Intrepid had detonated prematurely, not among the fleet, not at the planned anchorage position, somewhere in the approach. The covering squadron estimated the explosion occurred 400 yards from the harbor entrance, too far from the target, too early. What caused the premature detonation remains unknown. The Navy investigated, theories emerged, none proven. Theory 1, hostile fire. A Tripolitan shore battery or patrol boat detected the Intrepid during approach, fired on her. A lucky shot penetrated the hold, ignited the powder. This theory had problems. No witnesses reported gunfire before the explosion. The shore batteries would have sounded alarms if they'd spotted an intruder. Theory 2. Accident. The fuse system malfunctioned. A spark from rigging friction. A barrel shifted during rough sailing damaged the containment. Human error during the final setup. Any of these could trigger early detonation. The powder load was massive, unstable, sensitive to shock. Theory 3. Deliberate action. Summers realized the mission was compromised. Patrol boats closing in, escape impossible, capture imminent. Rather than let the Tripolitan forces capture 15,000 pounds of American explosives and 13 Americans, he chose detonation, immediate, controlled on his terms. This theory suggested Summers cut the fuse short intentionally, a final act of defiance. The Navy never confirmed which theory was correct. All three remained plausible. The truth died with the Intrepid. No bodies were recovered. The explosion vaporized everything within 50 yards. Fragments of wood and rope were found floating. Nothing identifiable, no personal effects. The 13 men simply ceased to exist. Commodore Preble recorded the loss in his log. September 4, 1804. Intrepid destroyed. Lieutenant Richard Summers, Lieutenant Henry Wadsworth, Midshipman Joseph Israel, 10 enlisted men, 13 total, mission failed. No enemy vessels destroyed. The failure didn't end the war. Fighting continued another 8 months. American forces launched 3 more major attacks on Tripoli. None succeeded in forcing surrender. In June 1805, a land campaign led by William Eaton captured the city of Derna. That victory, combined with continued naval pressure, finally brought the Pasha to negotiations. The treaty signed June 10, 1805, officially ended the First Barbary War. The United States agreed to pay $60,000 ransom for captured American sailors. No future tribute, no more payments. The Barbary states would not interfere with American shipping. The deal held for 7 years before the Second Barbary War erupted in 1812. The Intrepid mission was forgotten quickly. The Navy didn't celebrate failed kamikaze attacks. Preble's report to the Secretary of the Navy mentioned the incident in 2 paragraphs. No heroic narrative, no posthumous honors. Summers and his crew were listed as killed in action. Standard casualty reports. Years later, the story resurfaced. Naval historians examining early American maritime operations found Preble's logs. The details emerged. 13 volunteers, a fire ship packed with explosives, a mission that failed before reaching its target. The narrative grew. In 1827, Philadelphia erected a monument. Summers, Wadsworth, Israel, and the 10 enlisted men were honored as heroes of the Barbary Wars. The monument still stands. It doesn't mention the failure. It celebrates the sacrifice. The Intrepid's mission represented something larger than tactical success. In 1804, the United States was a maritime nation learning to project power. The Navy was improvising, fire ships, night raids, blockades. Every mission was experimental. Every operation tested what was possible. Summers and his crew volunteered knowing survival was unlikely. They didn't fight for glory or medals. They fought because their country asked, because the mission mattered, because someone had to try. The explosion that killed them lit Tripoli Harbor for 30 seconds, long enough for witnesses to see everything and nothing. The light revealed the scale of what they attempted. The darkness that followed revealed the cost.